Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 121 Heaven's Wheel of Justice spares no one. Awkwardly posing for a while, Ichigo felt he could almost dig out a 3-bedroom apartment with his toes underground. Ichigo said helplessly, "Who suggested coming here and posing? So stupid." Fei-Quan silently pointed his finger towards the other side. Pointed at by Fei-Quan's finger, Sister Mei was very awkward. Isn't this influenced by that idiot Madarame? Sorry. But it's strange. That person's surveillance monitors cover the entire Soul Society. He should have known we were coming immediately. Why hasn't there been any reaction yet? Fei-Quan said, puzzled. As for that, let's go in and see. Ichigo shrugged, taking the lead to step into the spy equipment development unit, preparing to find another player. Yes, the reason Ichigo and the other two came late at night was for one person, the Shigwa genius player, Landa. All gifts fate gives you have their price secretly marked from the start. Landi had persecuted Dongwa players for so long. It was time for him to pay the price. And watching Ichigo enter the spy equipment development unit, the livestream audience, who were already exhausted from the high-intensity fight scenes of the day, once again stirred their emotions and spoke up. Finally here. Heaven's Wheel of Justice spares no one. This Landa, now he's finally going to die, right? I've been staying up like an eagle trainer and still not sleeping. Previous commenter, same here. Classic being eagle trained by the streamer. Just stay up. It's just staying up late. Is this staying up late? Clearly it's cultivating immortality. More than that, I'm worried about Landa's methods. Why worry about that? Someone, send 2 scouts. Report, Commander. The enemy forces, hearing of the arrival of the Royal Army, have long been lost their courage. They are now in their room thinking frantically, wanting to beg the Royal Army to spare their life. Spare? Not much ability but quite imaginative. See if Ichigo cuts you down or not. Alright, since that's the case, no need to mind it anymore. The outside audience had already designed Landa's death. But Ichigo, at this moment, didn't know the other side was so pathetic. Until he opened the deepest door. Landi, who looked majestic, tall, and imposing even without anger, yet became soft the moment Ichigo's gaze swept over him, appeared before his eyes. Without waiting for the other to speak, Ichigo asked Fei-Quan, "It's him?" It's him. Good. Ichigo nodded, using his shuunpa. The next moment, a high-flying head soared, then quickly returned. The Shinigami replaced by Landa fell into unconsciousness, but everyone knew that the Shigwa genius who only focused on internal strife had been declared gone. Let's go. Ichigo turned around to leave. But at this moment, his expression suddenly froze. It wasn't because Landa pulled some trick. It was because he received something else. Because Landa had game coins pressed against him, and Ichigo was the one who executed it, so he received 60% of these game coins. Added to his previous gains, Ichigo's game coin reserves reached a huge 63.1 billion. The price to purchase his own Zanpakuto was enough. T/N, it seems the author has indeed made a mistake. A new Zanpakuto is only 60 billion, not 600 billion. In that case. On the way back to their lodgings, Ichigo operated the game coin shop. Thus, he has obtained his own Zanpakuto. Soul Society. 1 week after Aizen's betrayal. The 11th Division's open-air training ground. Getsuga Tensho. / A sky blue crescent and a golden kanatsu collided intensely. Boom. Under the powerful Ryatsu clash of Ichigo and Zaraki, the recently repaired 11th Division's training ground once again blasted open a large crater. Billowing smoke and dust rushed towards them. Feeling that strong wind and choking dust, Ikaku and Sister Mei were also extremely surprised. Both Captain and Ichigo have gotten stronger again. Ikaku sighed. Yeah. Sister Mei nodded. Simultaneously, Yuichiro also smiled cutely, her eyes excited looking at the two clashing blades. Ichigo-chan is so good. Ken-chan is very happy right now. Yuichiro's eyes showed yearning. If only Ichigo-chan could stay here with Ken-chan forever. Hearing Yuichiro's words, the corner of Yoruchi the cat's mouth twitched and she mumbled quietly. That kind of thing, even if Ichigo is willing to fight Saraki Kenpachi, it's impossible. The vacation is about to end. He's not a true battle maniac. Just as Yoruchi the cat said. On the field, after a series of blade exchanges, forcefully slashing away Zaraki, Ichigo suddenly stopped moving. Seeing Ichigo like this, Zaraki also stopped. He seemed to realize something. His fanatical smile gradually faded, and he silently spat in frustration. TCH, so it ends here? Ichigo answered with a smile, yeah, sorry Kenpachi. This week's rehabilitation training is about enough. Although with your personality, you won't be satisfied, but you should have had a bit of fun, right? Hearing Ichigo's words, even if dissatisfied and really wanted to recklessly slash forward and continue fighting, Zaraki could only accept. Because Ichigo couldn't control him, but he could control Yuichiro. Under Ichigo's candy offensive, Yuichiro defected splendidly. With Yuichiro being able to torment Zaraki, Ichigo didn't need to fear this battle maniac slashing at him at all. So, this week could be said to be the happiest week since entering Bleach. A major story arc passed, and he has plenty of free time. He could, under Yoruchi's lead, tour the 2nd Division, enjoy teasing Suifong, getting her murderous gaze and Little B's stings. He could, relying on his connection with Rukia, go to the Kuchiki house to freeload meals and drinks, and also pay respects to Kuchiki his Anna. He could go to the 10th Division to interfere with Hitsugaya's daily work, drink with Ranjaku and admire her assets. He could pet the dog at Kamamura's place, then treat the dog bite wound at Anohana's place, after having afternoon tea, then exercise with Zaraki to digest the afternoon tea snacks, and then tease Yuichiro. It could be said, having completely transformed into a loafer image, Ichigo made a wave of friends in the Soul Society. But happy times are always short. Before returning to the living world, Ichigo still had one thing to handle. Ichigo turned his head to look at the entrance of the 11th Division. There, wearing an elegant purple plum blossom kimono, Rukia stood quietly, not showing any trace of her former rough appearance. Ichigo, I am ready. It should be about time. Rukia nodded to Ichigo. Alright, then let's go. Ichigo took Rukia and Yoruchi the cat all the way towards outside the Siriidii. Not long after. West Rukongai, Shiba House. Knock knock knock. Gentle knocking sounds sounded. Who is it? Ganju, who had been looking after the house these past few days, opened the main gate. Ichigo, wearing common Shinigami uniform, and a sachi at his waist, and a large sword on his back. And Rukia, not carrying a zanpakuto but wearing a dignified kimono, appeared before him. Ichigo having two zanpakuto was a bit strange. But with the game's existence providing reasonable justification, there was no fear of others discovering the issue. As Kukaka's younger brother, Shiba Ganju naturally also deeply remembered the day he sent Ichigo in. Because these days in the Rukongai, Ichigo could be said to be unrivaled in reputation. Entering the Siriidii as a mere Ryoka, defeating 5 captains in a row, and finally being treated as an honored guest, this experience was simply unimaginable. Whenever hearing, Ganju felt a shared pride. Kurosaki Ichigo is strong, right? I sent him in. Such thoughts constantly spread in his heart. These days, Shiba Ganju had always wanted to see Ichigo again, viewing him as an idol. At this moment, seeing Ichigo, Ganju was also extremely pleasantly surprised. But his pleasant surprise didn't last long. Just like a computer accessing files, files on the local drive are always read faster than files on a flash drive. Recently very familiar with Ichigo, Ganju recognized him first, and also recognized Rukia not long after. Looking at Rukia, Ganju's face, which just had a smile, twisted. You're the Shinigami who killed my older brother, right? You actually still have the nerve to come here. As he spoke, Ganju ferociously threw a punch at Rukia. Watching Ganju's incoming fist, Rukia reflexively crouched to dodge. But seeming to remember something, she straightened up again, closed her eyes, preparing to take this punch. But how could Ichigo let Rukia be hit? Chapter 122 Ichigo's Future Arrangement. Smack! A crisp sound echoed. Ichigo extended his hand, blocking Ganju's fist. At the same time, sensing Ichigo's ryatsu, Kokaku hurriedly walked out. Sorry, changing clothes took a bit of time, Ichigo. Ganju, you idiot, what are you doing? Roaring, Kokaku kicked Ganju away. The heavy wind pressure stirred by her fair foot fully illustrated what a dear elder sister meant. Kicked by Kokaku, Ganju performed a scene of a body skipping across water on the muddy ground. He bounced up and down repeatedly, finally crashing heavily into the giant arm at the courtyard entrance. Crack! The arm holding up Kokaku's nameplate snapped and fell. Seeing this, Rukia forgot her own troubles for a moment and quickly looked at Ichigo. Is he alright? Won't this be a problem? Or is this the Shiba clan's educational method? Speaking of educational methods, Rukia became serious. After all, she was going to marry Ichigo in the future. If this was really the educational method, she needed to get used to it early. Regarding Rukia's thoughts, Ichigo gave a faint smile. This wasn't a good educational method. It was purely because the Shiba clan had Soul King lineage, making them tough and durable. Such thing wasn't worth learning. However, facing his own elder sister's education, Ganju felt extremely wronged. Sis, this guy is the one who killed Big Brother. I want to avenge Big Brother, what's wrong with that? Shut up. Kokaku paid no attention to Ganju. She simply looked calmly at Rukia. After giving her all to Ichigo, having someone who truly controlled her body, Kokaku no longer dressed as boldly as before, becoming more conservative and reserved. Yet, wearing just a yukata, Kokaku gave Rukia unprecedented pressure. Because Kokaku's identity to Rukia was somewhat complex at this moment. She was both Kaien's younger sister and Ichigo's relative, even potentially the main wife. At the same time, her visit this time wasn't solely for Kaien's matter. Bowing deeply to Kokaku, Rukia said, I am sorry about Kaien Dano's matter. Also, please give your approval for my relationship with Ichigo. Given Ichigo's status, his relationship with Rukia certainly didn't need Kokaku's approval. But Rukia had been in the Soul Society for a long time, deeply influenced by clan concepts. Now that Ichigo was considered to have returned to the Shiba clan, Rukia insisted on getting the approval of Kokaku, the head of the main family. Ichigo let her do as she wanted. Hearing Rukia's words, Kokaku finally smiled. About Big Brother's matter, I heard the entire story from Captain Yukatake long ago. I always thought that as long as you said sorry, I would forget everything. So, it's alright. As for you and Ichigo, I have no objections. Saying this, Kokaku helplessly spread her hands. After all, in this family, Ichigo has the final say. Alright, come in. Ha? Hearing Kokaku's words, Rukia was a bit confused. Watching this scene, the live stream audience found it very amusing. Don't you understand what family emperor position means? Yeah, mooching with dominance, you think I'm joking? But to be fair, this isn't entirely mooching with dominance. Ichigo himself has strength. True. After apologizing to Kokaku, Ichigo and Rukia entered the Shiba residence. Here, Oraheim, Yuryu, Chad, and others had been waiting for a while. According to the Siriiti's message, the Senkaman for everyone would be ready tomorrow. They had one day left before returning to the living world. This was their final gathering in the Soul Society. Kurosaki-kun, we were just waiting for you and Rukia. Oraheim called out. All right. Ichigo and Rukia took their seats. After the intense battles, a lively party began. Under Kukaku's enthusiastic arrangements, the group about to part drank late into the night. After everyone else was knocked out, Ichigo swayed back to the room reserved for him in the Shiba house. However, not long after, the door to Ichigo's room was gently pushed open. Rukia, who had changed at some point into a pure white yukata with exquisite plum blossom patterns, appeared at Ichigo's doorway. Rukia? Looking at Rukia, Ichigo was quite puzzled. Looking at Ichigo, Rukia blushed, gently biting her lip. In her eyes, captivating ripples shimmered. Then, steeling her resolve, struggling internally, Rukia finally made her decision and walked forward. Ichigo, I made up my mind back when Oni-sama took me away, but there just hasn't been a chance these past days. That day when we defeated Sister together, I wanted to find you, but being in the Kuchiki house, Oni-sama's gaze was too terrifying, I didn't dare. Also, sorry I still can't return to the living world with you yet. For now, there's only tonight. This outfit is said to have been left for me by Sister, so Rukia's later words remained unspoken. Because at that moment, Ichigo had already kissed Rukia. A faint scent of plum blossoms spread. If a flower is ready to be plucked, pluck it. Moreover, the flower had come to him on its own. A keto barrier about silencing, which Ichigo temporarily spent game currency to exchange for from the game, deployed. Tonight, the most beautiful white plum blossom in the Soul Society was plucked, turning into spring mud. But at the same time, Suriitii, 1st Division's barracks, Captain's Meeting Hall. All captains were assembled again, except for the traitorous captains of the 3rd, 5th, and 9th Divisions. Looking at the captains before him, Yamamoto tapped his staff. The reason for summoning you all today is something you are likely well aware of. What are your thoughts regarding Kurosaki Ichigo's future arrangements? Should he be like Jinjo Kugo, made a substitute Shinigami under supervision, or absorbed into the Suriitii? If absorbed into the Suriitii, based on his human identity, how should it be handled? Yamamoto swept his gaze around. His commanding eyes slightly opened, making everyone tense. The captains exchanged a few glances. Finally, stroking the scar left on her palm from stopping Ichigo and Kenpachi's fight in the 4th Division, Anohana's eyes gleamed with a flicker of fervor. She stepped forward first. Captain Commander, I propose absorbing him into the Suriitii. Reason? Yamamoto said flatly. He is strong, has great potential. Such a person should not be left outside the Soul Society. Unohana stated without hesitation. Yamamoto looked at the other captains. And you? Kiraku, Yukitake, Byakuya, Hitsugaya, Kamamura, and the others exchanged glances and said in unison, we concur. Saying this, Kiraku added, that Kurosaki boy is really strong, you know. Is that so? Yamamoto nodded. This was also the result he desired. Then, regarding Kurosaki Ichigo's specific future arrangements, Yamamoto continued. Kuratsuchi Mayuri, assign him to the 12th Division for me to research. Hitsugaya, come to my 10th Division as the 3rd seat. Zaraki, this kid absolutely cannot be given to another division. Byakuya, Kurosaki Ichigo is of noble lineage. Unohana, I'll just smile and see who doesn't give me respect today. But unlike the previous harmony, when it came to Ichigo's specific placement within the Suriitii, the captains had significant disagreements. Fierce arguments began. Ichigo probably couldn't have imagined what the Soul Society would offer him due to his astonishing performance this time. Chapter 123 Game Update, the first event. The next day. In front of the Senkaman leading back to the living world, Yukitake called Ichigo aside separately and handed him a wooden tag. This wasn't the so-called substitute Shinigami badge. It was the 13th Division's lieutenant armband. Ha! Looking at the lieutenant armband in his hand, Ichigo was stunned. Captain Yukitake, is this really for me? Correct. Yukitake said with a smile. After the Soul Society's all-night research, brawl, it has been decided to specially recruit Kurosaki Ichigo for the position of 13th Division's lieutenant. Considering your human identity, this position is granted first. The specific start date can be set 10, or even 20 years later. But that's all irrelevant, we are willing to wait. Before that, Ichigo, just carry out the inherent duties of the 13th Division, exterminating hollows in Karakura Town. Of course, all the benefits and privileges that come with being a lieutenant will be fully provided. So, Ichigo, do you accept? Of course. Ichigo nodded. Something that's just a title, with actual duties to be fulfilled much later, why wouldn't he accept? Moreover, the 13th Division is specifically assigned to Living World spiritual affairs. Ichigo being the lieutenant means he can mobilize all Shinigami in the Living World. Even if it might not be of much use, having authority you don't use is completely different from having no authority at all, right? Looking curiously at the 13th Division's lieutenant's armband in his hand, Ichigo also felt a sense of novelty. The highest rank players could choose as an initial identity was lieutenant. He hadn't expected that as a level 1 rookie, he would reach the pinnacle of all initial identities so quickly. Indeed, Kurosaki Ichigo's body had limitless potential. Then welcome aboard, Ichigo. Though the division's welcome party will probably have to wait until your next visit. Yukitake extended his hand to Ichigo. Of course, Captain Yukitake. Ichigo shook his hand. The two smiled at each other. Carrying the brand new 13th Division's lieutenant's armband, Ichigo and the group returned to the Living World. Similar to the original work, Kisuke came to pick them up and apologized for Rukia's matter. Ichigo didn't punch Kisuke like the original Ichigo did. After all, regarding the precious thing, he had already stolen a taste of the first time. After just getting a batch of Kido books from Kisuke, Ichigo and the others returned to their respective homes. Briefly discussing Soul Society matters with Isshin, Ichigo went back to his room, ready to sleep. But then, a new development arrived. A game announcement echoed in everyone's minds. Ding! As players have currently reached a certain level of strength, to facilitate player growth, the game will undergo a major version update. Simultaneously, the first game event enters countdown. Players who meet the strength requirement, ordinary Shinigami level, please return to the Soul Society, etc. Because hiding players' initial identities has instead created a Dark Forest effect, contradicting the game's original intent, the rules are now changed. Ding! The player ranking list is fully updated. Player identities are no longer hidden. Simultaneously, killing between players is prohibited. Please play harmoniously. Ha! The game's sudden announcement was like a depth charge, blasting away Ichigo's sleepiness. Game event, what does that mean? And, prohibiting player killings? Ichigo was a bit confused. To be honest, the previous game was more like a panel than a game. It allowed players to grow, gave players missions, but didn't have typical game tasks. Including the development of the Bleach's storyline, the game let it proceed naturally without any interference. But this major version update told players that the game was about to fully exert its power and interfere with the process. So, the game's power has increased, Ichigo pondered. Speaking of which, major version update, and the first game event. Event, could it be that one? Ichigo recalled a filler arc from the original Bleach anime. One about a race that hunted living human souls. Bound, ha! Unusual light gleamed in Ichigo's eyes. At the same time, when the game said a major update was imminent, it meant just that. Suddenly, all players' interfaces changed again. Player points ranking list. First, Ling Fan, 13th Division's Lieutenant Kurosaki Ichigo, 380,000, Captain level. Second, Luo Mei, 11th Division's 5th seat, 80,000, Lieutenant level. Third, Wang Zonchao, Hueco Mundo's Miscellaneous Hollow, 70,000, high-level seat officer. Fourth, Chuan, Hueco Mundo's Expeditionary Force, 67,000, high-level seat officer. 5th, Xan Na, Shino Academy's 6th year student, 65,000, mid-level seat officer. 6th, Jing Bing, Shino Academy's 6th year student, 63,000, mid-level seat officer. 7th, Rao Dalu, 13th Division's Shinigami stationed in the living world. 8th, Kale, 13th Division's Shinigami stationed in the living world. 9th, Fei Quan, on Mitsukido investigator. 10th, Kwang Zhan, 11th Division, S member. The player interface changed. The player points ranking list, which from the start could only show names, now suddenly revealed everyone's identity. From now on, Ichigo could see the identities of all 5,000 remaining players out of the initial 6,000. Only then did Ichigo realize there were some formidable people among the players. Especially those two Shino Academy girls, who relied purely on study to improve their strength, yet reached mid-level seat officer standards in less than 3 months. That was actually quite impressive. However, scrolling through the player list, Ichigo continued looking down. Player ratings ranged from him, the towering captain level, to lieutenant level Sister May, then down to high-level seat officer, mid-level seat officer, low-level seat officer, elite division member, ordinary division member. Using ordinary squad member as the baseline, Ichigo scrolled down. He discovered that among the nearly 5,000 remaining, only about 1,000 had reached ordinary division member strength, with many relying on their initial identity to meet the standard. Why was Ichigo so concerned about ordinary division member? Because, simultaneously with the game update, Ichigo was informed that only players with strength equivalent to an ordinary division member could participate in the upcoming event. So after calculating the number of players who could participate, Ichigo was puzzled again. Based on his memory, the scale of the upcoming bout arc shouldn't be enough to support so many players, especially ordinary players. So he wondered if the game intervened and modified the storyline. Wait, modification? Once this idea popped into Ichigo's head, it began to linger. If modification was possible, why wasn't it done from the beginning, instead of letting people choose identities and then fend for themselves? Yes, fend for themselves. Ichigo wasn't wrong. Even with initial identities, only a few had powerful ones. Most initial identities were somewhat useful but not completely reliable. The missing 1/6 of players, and the remaining 4,000 who hadn't reached division member strength, were like that. If so, it meant the game couldn't modify the Bleach world in the early stages. Then why could the game now operate and modify the Bleach world? It had grown. This wasn't strange. This type of game was similar to the main God Space model, perhaps the principles overlapped. The earlier game was very lacking, but after the players' efforts, the game had gradually grown stronger. This was also likely why it now forcefully prohibited player killings. And since it had grown, naturally it needed to continue giving back to players, aiding their growth. That was the purpose of the upcoming event. That's probably it. Thinking this, Ichigo murmured and nodded. After sorting out the game's purpose, he also began considering what kind of event this would be and what he could gain from it. Then, Ichigo actually grasped a blind spot. Although Bleach was an anime he watched a long time ago, and he only remembered major plot points, his memory of the bout arc was vague, but... Chapter 124 The Bounce appear. But there was one thing he remembered very clearly. That was the method the Bounce used to travel to the Soul Society. They needed Quincy arrows. This was a hard requirement. Because the woman who appeared at that time left a bit of an impression on Ichigo, as he initially thought she might pair up with Yuryu. Ichigo glanced at the game's notification interface again. Event time, soon, not specific. That means the bout arc hasn't started yet. The game is also waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to trigger it. Quincy arrows, I have those too. In Ichigo's mind, a plan to outwit fate began to take shape. After some preliminary planning and looking at the Kido books, Ichigo, as per his routine, channeled his Ryatsu into his Zanpakuto, then hugged it and fell into a deep sleep. Achieving Zanpakuto release requires a Shinigami to live and breathe with their sword, accumulating tempering, and imprinting the essence of their soul onto the Zanpakuto to create their own sword. Ichigo was currently at the very initial stage. It was a slow, gradual process, but Ichigo wasn't in a hurry. Early the next morning, Ichigo got up early, trained for a while, then shouldered his school bag and headed to school. Once in the classroom, he took out the Kido books to read again, completely ignoring the teacher on the podium. Wake up early, train, go to school to study, sense hollows, take a soul candy when he sensed one, and go hunt hollows. Occasionally, he would drop by the Urahara shop to seek advice from the true Kido master, Tsukabashi Tessai. Ichigo's life was incredibly routine. This continued until a week later. Heido number 4, Byakurai. A precise bolt of lightning shot from his finger, cleanly piercing the miscellaneous hollow ahead. Though it was only a number 4 Heido, with Ichigo's captain-level strength, sweeping away a miscellaneous hollow was effortless. These days, the occasional hollow had almost become Ichigo's tools for practicing Kido and testing his new sword. Looking at Ichigo's current state, viewers in his live stream, accustomed to high-energy battles, seem to have fallen into an electronic impotence of sorts. Ah, the daily life in Ichigo's stream is so boring now, I want to sleep. Yeah, facing these small fries, it's either instant kills or more instant kills, just thinking of different ways to instant kill them every day. Last time, Ichigo, who couldn't be bothered to walk, actually started shooting arrows from afar like Ishida Yuryu, completely disregarding whether it would disrupt the soul balance. So daily life is the most draining. Everyone sighed helplessly. Maybe Ichigo should just go back to reading Kido books. We can follow along with that. Because Ichigo's Kido books came directly from the Seriidii, and also had annotations and corrections from Kasuke and Tessai, the two masters, they were highly sought after. At the very least, many who had long been preparing for the arrival of supernatural powers had already started memorizing them, hoping to achieve good results in the future market. And on screen, that's indeed what Ichigo was thinking. Continuous small hollows could increase his combat points, but at this level, it was negligible for Ichigo. Might as well just have someone stationed here. After all, I'm a lieutenant. Ichigo thought as he headed home. But at that moment, an unusual burst of Ryatsu flashed by. Ha! Ishida's Ryatsu? He seems to be fighting? Ichigo looked puzzledly in a certain direction. After a moment's thought, Ichigo quickly moved forward. At the same time, Yuria and Chad stood back to back, dealing with two very strange humans. Licked Regan! Yuria knocked an arrow. From his blue spiritual bow, dense rain of light arrows shot forth. In front of the light arrows were swarms of vicious rock snakes. Despite being fired en masse, each light arrow accurately struck a rock snake. The snakes shattered, turning into piles of concrete rubble. Simultaneously, a huge fireball flew towards Yuria from behind. El Directo! Chad activated his full bring, punching towards the fireball. Boom! The fireball scattered and exploded under the tremendous force, shockwaves spreading. But just as the fireball exploded, a stand user wreathed in flames approached again, firing off a continuous volley of fireballs. This series of attacks perfectly caught Chad between finishing one exertion and gathering the next. So Chad could only block with his brawny right arm. The fireballs exploded against the red arm, drawing a pained grunt from Chad. Sato, are you okay? Yuryu asked with concern. Fine, minor issue. Chad shook his head. My body is very strong. That's good. Yuryu nodded. He adjusted his glasses, his sharp gaze fixed on the two ahead, Soma Yoshino and Utagawa Ryo, and said coldly. Although I don't know who these people are, coming to Karakura town is seeking death. Kurosaki-kun will arrive soon. By then, none of these people will escape. Hearing Yuria's words, a glint of determination also flashed in Chad's eyes. By now, Ichigo was the brightest star in their minds, their strongest trump card. However, upon hearing Yuria's words, Utagawa Ryo's eyes held a trace of disdain. Kurosaki Ichigo, right? We've seen his data. He's indeed strong, but so what? We have people assigned to deal with him. You won't get the chance. We'll be quick. As he spoke, another person stepped out beside Utagawa Ryo. A young man with orange hair who looked rather delinquent. Mabashi, extending his tongue with a tongue piercing, licked his lips and looked at Yuryu excitedly. "You're a Quincy, right? I haven't tried a Quincy soul yet. Don't worry, when I control your body later, I'll be very gentle." From the pendant around Mabashi's neck, 10 little pixie-like creatures flew out. Looking at Mabashi's pixie dolls, Utagawa Ryo's snakes, and Soma Yoshino's fire doll, Yuryu was bewildered. What exactly are you people? These abilities look like Zanpakuto releases, but they're completely different in structure. Yuryu couldn't figure it out. Hearing his words, Mabashi gave a faint smile. "It's fine, you'll understand soon enough." With that, the giant rock snake and fire doll charged again. The rock snake's ability was to transform touched inorganic matter into organic matter it could control. Swarms of snakes emerged from the ground, slithering towards the two. But this time, there were snakes on the ground, a giant rock snake in front, a fire doll in the air, and a pixie with unknown abilities nearby. Yuryu and Chad found themselves in an unprecedented predicament. "Damn it, we should have had Orihime with us today." Yuryu cursed silently to himself. Karakura town was large. Ichigo was a student, so one person couldn't handle it all, or it was simply overkill. Therefore, the three of them usually operated in a small team. But today, Orihime had her monthly visitor, so Yuryu kindly let her rest. He hadn't expected to encounter such enemies. "Sato, we're in for a tough fight." Ishida Yuryu said, "We must hold out until Kurosaki-kun arrives." "All right." Chad nodded silently. On his black-red right arm, a large shield-like structure opened up. Facing the three surrounding them, the two went all out. Chapter 125 Young Heroes Indeed. On the other side, just as those bounce had said, Ichigo was indeed intercepted. The ones intercepting him are the bounce, Yoshi, with coffee-colored skin and abilities quite similar to the champion Aurelia from League of Legends, the elderly-looking Saitari, who could control mud whales, and Kogago, who controlled a steel doll, intercepted Ichigo. "Halt, Kurosaki Ichigo. You are strong, but we won't let you pass either. Our 1,000-year endeavor as bounce is nearing completion. We don't need additional obstacles." Looking at the three ahead, Ichigo gave a cold laugh. "Oh, is that so? I don't see much skill, but your mouths are big enough. What's your confidence based on? That trash over there who can't even hide his Ryatsu properly?" Ichigo suddenly looked to the side. On his flank, there was an area where light seemed distorted, appearing empty but quite incongruous. Heido number 4, Byakurai. Suddenly, Ichigo fired a Kido spell. Whoosh! Ichino's Maki tore off the optical camouflage from his Zanpakuto, using Shuunpa to dodge. He looked at Ichigo in disbelief. "Impossible. My concealment allows me to move freely even within the Seriitii. How did you notice me? Do you even need to ask?" Ichigo was utterly disdainful. "Mere optical camouflage. Can you erase your very existence too? The Seriitii didn't detect you simply because they've become rigid. Speak. Which division are you from? And why are you mingling with these people?" Ichigo interrogated sternly. Hearing Ichigo's words, Ichinos clearly felt awkward. His past was his most painful memory, so Ichinos didn't want to talk about it. So he said quite stiffly, "That's none of your business." "Interesting." Ichigo raised an eyebrow. To be honest, he truly didn't understand these bounce. He had been wondering how the event would start, but hadn't expected their way of starting was to directly come after him. "Aren't you people afraid of me?" Ichigo asked in surprise. "Have you all gotten too cocky, or have I lost my grip on my sword?" With that, Ichigo released his Ryatsu, which was considered strong even among captain level. Under the pressure of Ichigo's Ryatsu, a group of bounce whose strength topped out at lieutenant level actually all had their faces darken, as if bearing a 1,000-pound weight, and half knelt on the ground. Thud 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 thud. On the ground, dense spiderweb cracks spread out from where these people's iron knees impacted. These bounce were still okay, at least they were human, albeit a special breed, with their souls still within their bodies. But Ichigo's was different. This person wasn't wearing a jigai and was directly facing Ichigo's Ryatsu. Now, struggling to support himself with his Zanpakuto planted on the ground, Ichigo's gritted his teeth. "You bastard, damn it, why? The data in the Research and Development Institute clearly didn't say you were this strong." Ha! In response to Ichigo's question, Ichigo gave a cold laugh. Of course, the data in the Research and Development Institute didn't show him being this strong. But who told Ichigo had awakened his own Zanpakuto? Though he hadn't achieved Shurkai or learned its name, Ichigo's current Ryatsu was a superposition of his own and Kurosaki Ichigo's, naturally extraordinary. Never mind these lieutenant-level foes, even if a pseudo-captain like Ikaku, who had achieved Bankai and whose combat power could touch the threshold of captain level, came to face Ichigo, they would be pressured like these people. Watching this, the audience in Ichigo's live stream laughed. "Ha, you were just saying there's no entertainment, and now here it is? No, I don't get it. Don't these people do any research before going out to cause trouble?" Smashing headfirst into Ichigo, the steel plate, feeling good now? This must be like stubbing your pinky toe on the corner of a table. Ugh, stop, I'm already feeling the pain. Regardless of the bounce plans beforehand. Now, encountering Ichigo, they were completely unable to proceed. Seeing this, the bounce leader, Korea Jin, had to appear to salvage the situation. I had long heard of a human named Kurosaki Ichigo who charged into the Siriitii and fought 5 captains. Seeing you today, your reputation is well deserved. Young heroes indeed. Korea sighed. But looking at Korea, who didn't have much facial hair but spoke with an overly mature tone, Ichigo felt displeased. "And who the hell are you?" Korea's Ryatsu barely reached captain level, but Ichigo wasn't the nerfed Ichigo from the original work. Giving no respect at all, Ichigo gripped his Asachi, Kanatsu. High-density erasure compressed on the sharp blade, then Ichigo released a proper Iajutsu draw slash. A clear sword light instantly bridged the short distance between Korea and Ichigo. Seeing Ichigo draw his sword without another word, Korea's expression changed slightly. "Messer!" Korea's doll appeared, wrapping around his right hand like a hairdryer. Like a lightsaber, an invisible wind blade gathered above Korea's hairdryer. Clang! Using the wind blade on his hand, Korea blocked Ichigo's Kanatsu. After all, this was just an attack using Ichigo's own sword, not Zangetsu. But that didn't mean Ichigo wouldn't use Zangetsu. Getsuga Tensho. Almost arriving with the sword light, a mighty and heavy Getsuga Tensho slashed out from Zangetsu. Korea, having just blocked the Kanatsu, couldn't react in time and was sent flying by this slash. The wind blade on his hand instantly dispersed, and the expanding Getsuga Tensho left a deep wound on Korea's chest. Korea! Seeing Korea sent flying, the bounce were utterly shocked. Korea was the strongest among them. No one had expected him to fail to block even a single move from Ichigo. "Don't look at me, get up." Using wind to right himself in mid-air, Korea looked at Ichigo, his face full of gloom. "Flicker with splendor, Nijigasumi." Bursting out with rare colorful Ryatsu, the very loyal Ichinos, wielding his Nijigasumi, charged first. Then the petrifying whale doll Bara and the steel doll dog arrived in succession. Looking at the shadow swimming at his feet, Ichigo just released a faint snort. Completely ignoring the attacks coming from all sides, Ichigo simply held the Zangetsu greatsword vertically in front of him. That stance. Seeing Ichigo like this, Ichigo's pupils contracted as he remembered. Immediately, his charging steps slowed, and he loudly warned the others. "Careful, he's going to use Bankai." The moment Ichigo's words fell. Bankai, Tensa Zangetsu. A massive pillar of Ryatsu exploded with Ichigo at its center. Under the sky-piercing pillar of Ryatsu, the whale doll Bara, trying to attack Ichigo from underground, had just surfaced when it was blasted away by the Ryatsu. The steel doll dog crashed into the intense wind, unable to advance. Meanwhile, the substantial Ryatsu pinned Ichinos down, making movement difficult as if stuck in mud. Looking at the bounce who were instantly scattered, Ichigo was disdainful. "You crumbling rabble, I can finish you all in an instant." With that, Ichigo lightly tapped his toes. The next second, the figure holding the slender Tensa Zangetsu became an afterimage. In an instant, huge gashes exploded open on the chests of Kobego, Saitari, and Ichinos. Guh? Guh? Looking at their chests, which were cut open without any resistance, the three were shocked into speechlessness. At the same time, Ichigo gave a word of praise. "Among the people here, only you are decent," Ichigo said to the woman in front of him. The other party swung the blades arrayed on her hand, blocking Ichigo's Tensa Zangetsu. "Is that so?" Yoshi gritted her teeth, struggling to maintain against the force transmitted to her arm. "Then I really thank you," Yoshi said with difficulty. "No need to thank me." Ichigo shook his head and added the next line. "But, it's only your ability that's decent." Blood artery, activate. Erasure infused into his blood, and Ichigo's body instantly surged with boundless power. Chapter 126 Fake Bounce. The slender Tensa Zangetsu fully demonstrated its sturdy nature at this moment. With a forceful exertion, Ichigo sent Yoshi flying heavily. Tensa Zangetsu once again pointed at Korea. Ichigo asked strangely, "I don't understand. What makes you dare to provoke me?" Hearing Ichigo's question, Korea's face twitched, finding it hard to answer. "Damn it, why is heaven so unfair?" Korea roared. He never expected his grand undertaking to be cut short right at the start by a boss of beginner village. "Bastard, I'll fight you to the death." Brandishing the wind blade on his hand, Korea engaged Ichigo in blade-to-blade combat. But how could mere gales stop Ichigo? 8 Flash. Ichigo casually made up a name. In the next second, his hollow mask covered his face for an instant, his body turning into an afterimage, instantly delivering 8 slashes across Korea's body. Crimson blood flowed everywhere. Thud. Korea was declared defeated. Is that all? Ichigo performed a beautiful blood flick and sheathed his sword. At this point, this group was completely dealt with by him. The problem was, first, the game gave no notification, second, it gave no explanation. Had I misjudged? Were the bounce not the event prepared by the game? What's going on? Ichigo looked around, trying to find something amiss. The problem was, the people at his feet were indeed dead beyond dead. A major arc's big boss, just gone like this? Ichigo truly didn't understand. Fortunately, as he took another step forward, stepping on the sticky blood, Ichigo's intuition finally told him what was wrong. The amount of blood is off. If he had really killed this many people, shouldn't there be more than just this splatter of blood? Wait. Looking at Korea and the others again, Ichigo's eyes suddenly noticed something. Ah, this. Ichigo reached into Korea's mouth. A somewhat discolored mod soul was pulled out from Korea Jin's mouth. Ichigo's expression darkened. He suddenly turned around. Shopkeeper Urahara, come out. Yar, you even discovered that, Kurosaki-kun? Fanning himself with a small fan, Kisuke walked out. What's the meaning of this? Ichigo asked, puzzled. Actually, it doesn't mean much. Just testing the combat capabilities and fighting styles of these mod souls with you. If I had known you'd use Bankai, I should have turned up their settings a bit more. Kisuke replied helplessly. But why not tell me about testing combat data? Wasn't I afraid you'd hold back against their true combat data, Kurosaki-kun? Kisuke chuckled awkwardly. The concentration of erasure in the world is, Hueco Mundo Soul Society Living World. Coming back from a high reishi density place like the Soul Society, I was afraid you wouldn't know how to control your current strength properly. But seeing you now, I'm relieved. Kisuke said. So, the test for Ishida and the others, that was also your arrangement? Ichigo looked curiously into the distance. Yes. Kisuk nodded. Not just Ishida-kun, but Inoue-kun as well, I had arrangements for them too. Looking at Kisuk like this, Ichigo was puzzled. No, what exactly are you trying to do? Swish. Kisuk lowered his hat. I told you, it's just a side test, and to gather some intel on these people. Not long ago, on a night like this, a group of people broke into my lab and took something. Kisuk explained. Huh? Ichigo was shocked. What did you lose? Ichigo asked, puzzled. Some data about how to hitch a ride on Hollows to get to Hueco Mundo, then use Hueco Mundo as a springboard to reach the Soul Society? That's possible too. Ichigo was speechless. Kisuk's stolen data completely disrupted Ichigo's plans. He had been thinking of using his spiritual bow to cheat the game when Korea opened the portal. And what about these people? Ichigo scratched his head. Meanwhile, in Hueco Mundo, having used their dolls to control Hollows, a group of people emerged from a dark opening. Such a thick concentration of erasure. Indeed, coming here was the right choice. Feeling the erasure concentration in Hueco Mundo, so dense you could get full just breathing, the Bounce were overjoyed. Quick, strengthen yourselves immediately. Absorbing massive amounts of erasure, the members of the Bounce squad rapidly transformed. The dolls, the foundation of the Bounce existence, also quickly changed. But then, the game announcement came again. Limited time event, Hunt the Bounce, begins. It started. It's finally started, huh? The moment the game announcement went out, numerous players looked at the game notification. From entry until now, 3 months had passed. 1/10 of the 2.5-year game duration had been consumed. But overall, aside from freaks like Ichigo who could directly participate in major Shinigami events, and players in Hueco Mundo who could grow by killing Hollows, most other players had spent the 3 months in silent training. The problem was, for long-lived species like Shinigami, once strength reaches captain level, lifespan starts at 1,000 years. Even without reaching captain level, living for a few hundred years was no problem. Compared to hundreds of years, 3 months was too short. Most hadn't trained abilities they could take out with them in any significant amount. That was reality. The exceptionally talented were always a minority. Therefore, such a game event open to all players was something every player desperately needed. All players began to move. In the Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force, Chuan found Wang Zhongchao. Coach, did the game say anything about how you Holotype players are supposed to get to the Soul Society? Hollows can go to the Soul Society, but they'll be hunted by the Siriidii. How do we handle that? Wang Zhongchao, wearing his wolf head mask, was also quite helpless. I don't know either. Wait. Wang Zhongchao suddenly froze. He looked at his game panel. It can do this? The next moment, Wang Zhongchao's appearance suddenly changed. A Shinigami wearing ordinary Shihakusho appeared before Chuan. What's going on, coach? Chuan was very confused. I don't know either. The game just gave me a mimicry skin and a disguised Zanpakuto. Using Shirkai lets me transform into my previous familiar form. Wang Zhongchao replied, still a bit dazed. Hey, want to try Shirkai? Chuan suddenly became interested. Alright, I'm curious too. Wang Zhongchao nodded, drew his Zanpakuto, and chanted, Howl at the dawn moon, Wolf Fong. A brilliant light enveloped Wang Zhongchao from the Zanpakuto. A werewolf appeared before Chuan. Just like this. Hides the mask, huh? Chuan realized. Seems so. Wang Zhongchao nodded. His hollow identity was indeed hidden by the game, but what about other things? Wang Zhongchao looked at Chuan, how do we get to the Soul Society? Chuan scratched his head, a bit stumped. This. For the Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force to return to the Soul Society, there's quite a bit of paperwork. Anyway, going through the Expeditionary Force's official channels, I feel we won't make it in time. Hearing Chuan's words, Wang Zhongqiao was troubled. Then what do we do? However, as if hearing their discussion, the game acted again. A Garganta appeared before the two. Looking at this Garganta, they both understood it was prepared for them. Let's go! Wang Zhongqiao stepped into the Garganta first. Not long after, they set foot on the soil of the Rukongai. An intangible stream of information arrived. Chuan looked beside him. The game tells me I'm currently on vacation status. What about you? Wang Zhongqiao replied, my identity is a 10th Division's patrol officer, responsible for patrolling the Rukongai. Good, then I'll patrol with you for now. Alright, let's familiarize ourselves with the terrain first. Subsequently, the Wang Zhongqiao and Chuan duo began their patrol. Other holotype players and Hueco Mundo Expeditionary Force players were handled similarly. Chapter 127 An Event Beyond the Scope. At the same time, at the Shino Academy. Jing Bing, wearing a 6th-year student uniform, with delicate features, a good figure, and a youthful vibrancy, found the equally stunning ice beauty Xin Na, who had an exotic charm. Xin Na, for the upcoming event, shall we team up? Hearing this, Xin Na's eyebrows furrowed slightly. She said somewhat helplessly. Haven't you heard the news from the Siriiti? Shigwa players like me are practically persona non grata now. There's no need for you to stick with me, right? Heh, what does that matter? Jing Bing intimately wrapped her arm around Xin Na's, pulling it against her chest, then trapping it with her ample assets. Those in the Siriiti are the bad Shigwa players. And now player killing is prohibited. Someone as beautiful as you, Xin Na, no one will give you trouble. Besides, how could I possibly abandon my darling Xin Na and let you face those ferocious monsters alone? Jing Bing smiled sweetly. Looking at her friend, Xin Na helplessly rubbed her temples. You, with a name meaning ice, yet you have no icy feeling at all. You're like a husky. T/N, in Chinese, Bing means ice. He, who told you to skip grades at the same time as me, so the school arranged us as roommates? You can't escape my clutches, Xin Na. Laughing, Jing Bing and Xin Na together temporarily put aside their imminent graduation studies, took leave, and walked out of the Shino Academy. By the way, Xin Na, have you thought about which division you'll join after graduation? That. Their voices faded into the distance. And in the 11th Division, leading the 11th Division players, Sister May also accepted a period of Rukongai patrol duty. Although the 11th Division was a combat division, they occasionally patrolled the Rukongai, so going out wasn't a problem. They just didn't know what the situation with this event would be. All players granted participation qualifications by the game began to move. But none of them had considered that those moving weren't just the players granted participation qualifications. West Rukongai, Zaraki District. In a dilapidated tavern, a blond man suddenly slammed his fist on the table before him. Damn it, I refuse to accept this. Why can only those with strength equivalent to a Shinigami division member participate in the event? We just didn't manage to grab a Shinigami initial identity. But is that our fault? Clearly, the game gave too few slots. This is unfair. The game is discriminating against us ordinary players. I protest. Hearing the blond man's words, a black man stood up. Right. Protest. Demonstrate. Loot. If you won't let me participate, then I'll force my way in. Bailu, how about we organize a group and forcibly charge in when they're happily doing their event? The black man suggested. Hearing his words, Bailu's eyes lit up. Oh, Dijao, that's a great suggestion. Then let's do just that. After all, players can't kill each other now, right? As long as it doesn't kill you, do it to death. That's what Bailu, who had shit-stirrer personality, should do. Good, let's act. I'll go gather my brothers. Dijao and Bailu split up, starting to gather people. Thus, all players began to move. And in Hueco Mundo, the army of the Nine Bounce was initially formed. Before the group, multiples of fire dolls, multiples of golden snake dolls, multiples of steel dolls, multiples of flying parasitic dolls, multiples of water dolls, multiples of stone whale dolls were densely arrayed. Ha ha ha, look! This is our peerless army. Looking at the numerous dolls ahead, Korea laughed heartily. The secret technique he accidentally obtained was truly a gift from heaven. After all, for bounce whose entire strength lay in their stands, being able to replicate their own dolls, what kind of concept was that? Now, they had nothing to fear. Now start attempting to open a Garganta to the Soul Society. I remember how to do that, the data had it too, right? Yes, leader. Ichigo nodded, then got busy. Ha! Living World, Urahara Shop. Ichigo gradually accepted the fact that he had been tricked by the game. But he was still a bit puzzled. Shopkeeper, how did you know what these bounce intended to do? Because I caught one person and encountered another. Kisuke clapped his hands. Soma Yoshino walked out again. Simultaneously, Kisuke brought out a surveillance video. It was of a bounce member named Ugaki. Kisuke explained, not long after you returned, Miss Soma Yoshino found us and revealed the existence of the bounce. Also, from Miss Soma Yoshino, I learned they possessed a very troublesome secret technique. They could use Reisure to mass-produce dolls with abilities. And depending on the amount of Reisure infused, the doll's strength varied. Such a method would allow these bounce to become one-man armies. Miss Soma Yoshino didn't want to see people suffering, so she wanted to cooperate with us. So I captured this man, learned the specifics. And the path to Hueco Mundo was something I deliberately told them. Hearing Kisuke's explanation, Ichigo understood and said calmly. You didn't want these people absorbing ordinary human souls in the living world, so you threw them into Hueco Mundo, planning to create some trouble for Aizen? Kisuke nodded, yes. We don't know how effective this secret technique is. Putting it in Hueco Mundo is most suitable. However, hearing his words, Ichigo sighed. Kisuke thought the bounce would clash with Hueco Mundo, but didn't consider that their goal was always the Soul Society. But Ichigo still had one question, so he asked in doubts. Then what are these mod souls for? But to this, Kisuke smiled without answering. Clearly, the one-to-one, fully realistic mod souls created using the bounce Reisure had other uses in Kisuke's hands. This seemed to be a backup plan Kisuke habitually prepared. However, for some reason, Ichigo felt a sense of unease. The original bounce were trashy, just slightly weaker, not sufficient as event targets for players. But now the game had personally intervened and borrowed Kisuke's power. What kind of monsters this would create was completely unclear. Ichigo remembered the game he played before crossing over. There, idiot designers would always create some new champions with overpowered stats. This time, the game carefully calculated, avoiding Ichigo in the living world who could affect it, and borrowed Kisuke's influence. But if it also created something completely unmanageable, what then? Ichigo grew concerned. Also, not getting much information from Kisuke, Ichigo chose to leave. I'm leaving. But he hadn't gone far when he turned back. Wait, open a door. Send me to the Soul Society. Ichigo said. What are you going to do? Kisuke was very puzzled. I'm going to the 13th Division to grab 2 Shinigami to come to the living world, to handle my daily hollow extermination work. Ichigo explained, otherwise. Chapter 128 The Situation in the Soul Society, Other Players. Otherwise what? Finish your sentence. Otherwise, if a situation like today happens again, with Ishida and the others being divided and attacked, that wouldn't be good. I see. After hearing Ichigo's explanation, Kisuke nodded seriously, then opened a Senkaman. Ichigo strode through. But Kisuke didn't know that Ichigo's earlier reason was true, but incomplete. The real reason was because the event rules had been announced. Born from Siriidii experiments, then slaughtered by the Siriidii, the Bount clan returns bearing hatred for the Siriidii. Next, the Bount army arriving from Hueco Mundo will land at different locations in the Rukongai. Please proceed to eliminate them. Ding. Event points ranking list activated. Ding. Temporary dolls have appeared. In the passage to the Soul Society, a blank doll appeared in Ichigo's hand. Touching it, Ichigo understood its ability. Nurturing babies, Ichigo realized. As long as he defeated enough bound dolls, he could inject the dropped essences into his own doll, eventually becoming a stand user. Then this event isn't bad. Ichigo understood. At this point, Ichigo fully understood the game's purpose. This was an opportunity to provide supplementary means for players from all sides who currently lacked methods. Ding! The first wave of bound doll armies has arrived. Please eliminate them quickly. Ding! Caution, doll armies can grow by consuming souls. Ding! The doll armies are troublesome. If you are not confident of victory, please withdraw. The game's warnings were very serious. So fast? Although the intention is good, I still feel something will go wrong. Then I need to hurry too. Ichigo quickened his pace. Meanwhile, West Rukongai. Jingbing and Xin Na were walking along, planning to go to Xin Na's original home as a base for activities. But then, information arrived. Jingbing, they're here. Xin Na's pretty face turned serious as she looked ahead and to the left. Jingbing looked. Just like hollows arriving from Hueco Mundo to the Soul Society, a Garganta suddenly opened. However, what emerged wasn't hollows, but a group of weapon-wielding dolls. This is the so-called army? Looking at the red, blue, and yellow dolls ahead, Jingbing was very puzzled. But no matter how strange, attacking would clarify things. Jingbing extended her fair palm and chanted. Ye Lord! Mask of blood and flesh, all creation, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man. Inferno and pandemonium, the sea barrier surges, march on to the south. Heido number 31, Shikao. Under her rapid chant, a huge fireball shot towards the doll army ahead. However, facing Jingbing's Shikao, the other side was unafraid. The fire-wreathed doll, Gerda, stepped forward and actually absorbed the flames of the Shikao with its own body. After taking a Shikao, Gerda only retreated half a step. Then, the giant rock snake that could manipulate inorganic matter advanced, slithering forward. Under its ability, the soil it passed turned into small snakes. In an instant, it created an anaconda disaster. Heido number 33, Sokatsui. Xin Na used incantationless casting. Sokatsui struck the snake swarm. Sapphire blue flames exploded. However, the snake swarm only vanished in large numbers, then was regenerated by the giant rock snake. Seeing the rock snake's strength, Jingbing's expression changed. Holy mother of, this is beyond the scope, right? The two of them were considered top-tier players, yet couldn't handle these dolls. Clearly, Ichigo's worries were coming true. Run! After testing, the two decisively made a swift exit. The bound doll armies arrived at the Siriitii through not very stable Gargantas from multiple locations. However, Jingbing and Xin Na encountering a full squad of dolls was actually an exception. The Gargantas from Hueco Mundo to the Soul Society were quite unstable. Most bound dolls arrived as single units, or in pairs or trios. Tear in Frenzy, Ruriiro Kujaku. Sister May released her Zanpakuto. Numerous glazed color vines extended from her hands. These glazed color vines accurately bound and wrapped the steel doll ahead. Then, Ruriiro Kujaku's ability to absorb Ryuryoku activated. The vines constricted. On the vines, clusters of blue flowers bloomed. These blooming flowers were manifestations of the absorbed Ryuryoku. The Ryuryoku absorbed by Ruriiro Kujaku would be released into the Soul Society as flowers, or could be absorbed by Sister May himself. The steel doll, impervious to blades and immensely strong, was easily drained of all its Ryuryoku by Sister May's vines, shattering and vanishing, leaving only a small core. However, picking up the core, looking at the instinctually pleasing, beautiful scene of blue flowers blooming everywhere, Sister May, who had easily dealt with a doll, showed no smile. Old He, how are Old Lu and the others? Sister May asked the Shinigami beside him. Old He, also a player, replied. Fifth seat, Old Lu and the others were sent to the 4th division in time. There were no issues. That's good. Sister May sighed in relief. Yet, when his gaze fell on the steel core left by the steel doll, his handsome face grew solemn. Because the enemies in this event were too troublesome. At least for ordinary players, i.e., Shinigami of division member level, that was the case. His arrival here this time was purely for rescue. Earlier, Sister May had encountered a water-type doll, which he easily dealt with. Then he encountered a fire-wreathed doll. This doll had an elemental advantage against him, so it was handled by Ichigo, who was always by his side. This steel doll came after. Although easily dealt with, the strength of the dolls sent by the game event was far beyond expectations. Take that water doll and this steel doll. Their immunity to blade attacks made them nightmares for ordinary Shinigami. Remember, the graduation requirement from Shino Academy was merely proficient use of Heido and Bakuto below number 33. It was only because Sister May's Zanpakuto happened to counter these that he handled them so easily. As for that fire doll, Sister May would have to use Kido. Therefore, Sister May could clearly judge that this event would have major problems. Let's go, continue patrolling forward. Sister May said to Old He beside him. Time is very critical now. And just as Sister May predicted. Single dolls were one thing, if you couldn't win, you could run. But players encountering groups of dolls were already in dire straits. Smash them, Tedamaru. A burly 11th division player released his Zanpakuto. The elongated katana instantly transformed into a long-handled sledgehammer. Bravely wielding his sledgehammer, Makuan smashed towards the steel doll dock ahead. Bashi! 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 Accompanied by the sledgehammer's Bashi shouts. The usually invincible steel doll dock, which used its own hardness as a weapon, was reshaped into various forms under Makuan's hammer, like steel being recycled. Soon, struck by the power-enhanced Tedamaru, dock was completely deformed and shattered, turning into a steel core that dropped. Ah, fought well today. Makuan laughed, picking up the steel core and stuffing it into his pocket. If the event is all like this, maybe I can catch up to the big shots ahead. Yeah. Makuan's friend, Kaisu from the 10th division, nodded. This kind of steel doll really is countered by you. With us teaming up, my control and your power, we're invincible. Chapter 129 The Powerful Dolls. As they talked, another steel doll dock arrived. Works here. Makuan shouted. Alright, I see it. Kaisu responded, also drawing his Zanpakuto. It was a Zanpakuto that could coordinate well with teammates. Facing the steel doll, Kaisu roared the release command. Little black fan, show your chicken feet. Under his Zanpakuto's release, the steel doll actually sprouted chicken feet. Bashi! Makuan lifted the sledgehammer and smashed the chicken feet. Smack! The hammer accurately hit the little chicken feet. With the chicken feet being hit, the steel doll dock froze in place as if anesthetized. But both Makuan and Kaisu knew it was because of the excessive pain from having its chicken feet smashed. No one could act normally after their chicken feet were smashed. Lifting the hammer, Makuan continued his 80-80 operation. Soon, this dock was also declared dead. Makuan and Kaisu were very happy. But suddenly, the joy on their brows vanished. Looking ahead with difficulty, Makuan cursed, why so many all of a sudden? Ahead of the two was a row of colorful dolls. Looking at the row of docks smashed by Makuan earlier, the numerous dolls charged forward. Smash them, Tedamaru. Little black fan, show your chicken feet. The perfectly coordinated duo teamed up again. But this time, hitting the numerous chicken feet wasn't so easy. Or rather, hitting them was useless. Under Kaisu's ability, a water-type doll, Ghoul, sprouted chicken feet. Makuan smashed the chicken feet with a hammer. The newly sprouted chicken feet shattered into water, then quickly reformed. the chicken feet, made of the same material as ghoul itself, were immune to physical attacks. Seeing this, a panicked Makoan smashed Ghoul's main body with his Tetamaru. The Tetamara hit Ghoul, but under the great force, Ghoul also burst apart. Water splashed around the two. But before they could say anything, the scattered water gathered again. "Oi, what are you doing?" Wailing, Kai-Su was enveloped within the gathering Ghoul. Beside him, Makoan suffered the same fate. Drowned and at a loss, the two couldn't breathe. They struggled, finally succumbing to lack of oxygen in the water, unable to hold their breath dispersing as they made gurgling, choking sounds. Soon, Makoan and Kai-Su were declared dead by suffocation. Faced with the doll army's complementary and varied abilities, similar scenes occurred in multiple places. Even in West Rukangai's 39th district, under the fire doll Gerda's ability, the Rukangai caught fire. Ah! Run! Mommy! Shinigami, where are the Shinigami? Numerous Rukangai residents fled in panic. As for the Shinigami supposed to be patrolling here? Whoosh! A sharp arm blade was pulled from a Shinigami's chest, bringing out a gush of blood. The steel doll dog looked to the side. There, another 10th Division Shinigami was being swallowed by a whale doll. Watching this scene, Jingbing and Xian Na, hidden nearby, trembled. Having failed to escape earlier, the two could only hide. To force the hidden two out, the fire doll Gerda started setting fires. Fortunately, the flames quickly attracted patrolling Shinigami from the 10th Division. But who would have thought the patrolling Shinigami would also be quickly eliminated by the dolls? The doll's strength far exceeded the two's expectations. What do we do, Xian Na? The fire is coming. Your Zanpakuto only erases presence, not existence. Jingbing said to Xian Na. Then hurry up and use your Zanpakuto's ability to get us out of here. Equally tense, biting her teeth, watching the Shinigami being slaughtered ahead, Xian Na could no longer maintain her aloofness. I want to. Jingbing was very distressed. The problem is, I haven't heard my Zanpakuto's name yet, so I can't release it. In that case, we have to fight. Xian now raised her palm towards the dolls ahead. Jingbing, together. Chant a high-numbered Heido. Success or failure depends on this. Alright. Jingbing also nodded firmly. Seeping crest of turbidity. The two chanted with difficulty. But Xian Na, channeling all her Ryuryoku to chant Heido number 90, Kurohitsuji, could no longer maintain her Zanpakuto's release. Seeing the two reappear, the dolls surrounded them. But at this moment, the two's chant for Kurohitsuji had only reached eternally self-destructing doll of mud. Unite. Repulse. The final line, fill with soil and know your own powerlessness, couldn't be spoken. They no longer had time to speak it. The command for the enemy to know their own powerlessness now seemed directed at themselves. In a flash, Jingbing gave Xian Na a look. What about it? Force incantationless casting? Understanding her best friend's meaning, Xian Na hesitated. But before she could decide, the extremely lucky two received reinforcements. Getsuga Tensho. A blue crescent moon arrived from the other end of the street, instantly reaching the two. Boom 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 boom. Whether it was the steel doll Doc, the water doll Ghoul, the fire doll Gerda, or even the giant snake swarm, all were blown apart by this full-power Getsuga Tensho. Scattered steel fragments, water droplets, sparks, and soil from the giant snake rained down on the two. Instantly, the two goddesses, considered the most beautiful geniuses of Shino Academy, became utterly disheveled. But at this moment, the two had no time to care about their appearance. Saved. Exchanging a surprised look, Xian Na and Jingbing, having narrowly escaped death, hugged each other in joy. Simultaneously. Thud. Another dull sound and vibration came from beneath their feet. Shaken by the vibration, Jingbing and Xian Na fell into acute duxit. They looked down. It was actually the whale doll Bara, which had tried to ambush them, appearing only to be destroyed by Ichigo. They had encountered this whale earlier. It could be said to be the most troublesome among the abilities of steel, water, and fire, because its ability was spatial. The whale burrowed into the ground, seemingly earth-gliding, but actually hiding in another space. Yet facing a whale hidden in another space, Ichigo could still destroy it with one strike. Such strength was simply unimaginable to the two. Xian Na and Jing Bing were dumbfounded. Watching this, the audience in Ichigo's livestream, having stayed long, felt a sense of shared glory. Ha ha, so what if they're Shino Academy's two goddesses? Aren't they scared silly by Ichigo? Probably studying to improve themselves, they've never seen any real powerhouses. Ichigo really opened their eyes today. Yeah, and I hope Ichigo pushes on, best to also subdue this Xian Na. Although Xian Na and Jing Bing have similar strength, we all know it's because Xian Na's Zanpakuto doesn't boost strength much. But we all know how central Bankai is in the world of Shinigami. Looking at it this way, Xian Na's talent isn't lower than Jing Bing's. Don't let this Shigwa genius go back. Due to Ichigo's previous direct killings, the real-world situation on Earth was already precarious. No one wanted the Shigwa people across the ocean to fare well. Meanwhile, Ichigo looked at the two girls ahead and asked curiously, "You two, are Shino Academy students? How did you get here?" Chapter 130 Zombie Apocalypse. We. Coming back to her senses, Jing Bing wanted to explain, but she immediately saw Ichigo's armband. A wooden tag, with the character 13 written on it. Wasn't this the 13th Division's lieutenant? And the 13th Division's lieutenant. Your Ling fan? Jing Bing asked. Oh? Are you two also players? Ichigo was slightly surprised. Yes. My name is Jing Bing, and this beside me is Xian Na. Jing Bing introduced. Then she looked at Ichigo with fervent eyes. Glad to meet you. Number 1 player. So, how about telling me how you got so strong? I'll give you Xian Na in return? Grabbing Xian Na in a hug, Jing Bing completely ignored her best friend's resistance, tempting him. How about it? I've inspected the goods. Don't mind the modest appearance, Xian Na actually binds her chest. From my experience, the seemingly aloof Xian Na is actually sensuous on the inside. Hearing Jing Bing's words, Ichigo involuntarily looked at Xian Na's chest. The Shino Academy's uniform was very conservative, but even so, the curve at Xian Na's chest was still quite noticeable. And this was with chest binding. If that was the case. Ichigo's mind conjured an image of an orange-haired woman who was also a lieutenant level. That was truly an eye-catching spectacle. Hiss. Ichigo drew in a sharp breath. Seeing Ichigo like this, Xian Na finally couldn't hold back any longer, her slender fingers pinching the tender skin on her crazy sister's waist. You're going to die. Xian Na twisted her fingers 180 degrees, saying shyly and angrily, you go if you want. TCH. Jing Bing winced in pain from the pinch. But Xian Na was mistaken. Jing Bing wasn't just being crazy. Fine, I'll go then. Jing Bing said without hesitation. Simultaneously, she gave Xian Na a faint smile. Wasn't I thinking that a sister combo meal would be more tempting? And besides, although coming here is like being reborn, don't forget that from the moment we were chosen, our fates are tied to the characters we chose. If you're really too shy, then comfort yourself by saying it's just getting married in a game. Haven't you gotten married in a game before? Men can pretend to be women in games, seducing other men, so why can't we? But the strength gained in return is real. Jing Bing's stream of words stunned both Ichigo and Xian Na. Ichigo looked at Jing Bing in surprise, not expecting her to be a legendary social terror. On the other side, Xian Na was also made a bit dizzy by Jing Bing's words. In a game, doesn't count as real? It's just a game. For one's own benefit, Xian Na began to think seriously. Watching this, bullet comments surged again. Holy crap, this is Ichigo for you. As soon as he meets them, two girls are throwing themselves at him. Wah, I want girls throwing themselves at me too. You cross-dressing monsters, turn left to Thailand, then find a big tree, and you can give yourself a hug. How naive these people are. Don't they know that some shoes are tight when first worn, but after getting used to them, they get stretched out? Later, when a smaller foot tries to wear them, they'll slip off? After getting used to one size, won't you feel uncomfortable going back outside later? Haha, the previous commenter is spot on. With an old driver boldly starting the car, the racing competition on Akina Pass began again. However, unlike the audience's delight, seeing these two actually considering such matters upon meeting, Ichigo had to interrupt. He didn't know what to say. Could he say he was cheating? So Ichigo could only say, let's not worry about that for now. I just got back from the living world. Can you tell me about the event situation you encountered? Ichigo looked at the burning Rukongai. He knew things had escalated this time. These dolls just now had strength almost identical to those Kasuke created earlier. The problem was, the more souls the dolls killed and the more Ryuryoku they absorbed, the stronger they became. When Ichigo was attracted by the fire here, he had killed a lieutenant-level steel doll. Moreover, Ichigo hadn't forgotten. The more Ryuryoku these strange dolls had, the stronger they became. If the mass-produced copies via the secret technique were already like this, to what degree had the original prototypes grown? Ichigo hardly dared to imagine. Alright, it was like this. Jingbing also knew the situation was critical and quickly explained to Ichigo. From a seat officer's perspective, Ichigo re-evaluated the strength of the Bout dolls. Not long after, Sister May, leading his team forward, arrived. Ichigo, who are these? Sister May asked. Jingbing, and Xin Na. Ichigo replied. Good timing. I want to talk to you about this event. Ichigo pulled Sister May aside. The current situation was that to get other players to participate in the event, everyone needed to be united. Otherwise, with these ordinary players' maximum strength at seat officer level, they couldn't face these organized, complementary ability dolls. Those good at Kido and those good at close combat were both indispensable. Alright, I'll listen to you on this. Sister May decisively nodded. Players in the Soul Society were mobilized on a large scale for the first time. Because the smaller the Rukongai district number, the better the public order and the more Shinigami guarding it, most Bout doll armies landed in the outer numbered districts. Led by Ichigo, everyone began moving from the Rukongai districts in the 30s, heading towards the more remote districts. Thanks to Ichigo's strength, the player event finally proceeded smoothly with some peace of mind. However, Ichigo failed to notice one problem. There were 8 types of Bout dolls, but currently Ichigo had only seen 5: snake, whale, water, fire, and steel. The controlling doll Ritz, Korea's hairdryer doll Messer, and the kneader doll. Ichigo hadn't seen them at all. In the distance, West Rukongai, Zaraki District. Shuan and Wang Zongchao were watching the scene ahead with gravity. In the sky, numerous Ritz dolls fluttered about, finding souls fleeing from their homes, and then merged into their bodies. Once inside, as if a new controller took over, the souls' expressions turned blank. But their bodies, controlled by Ritz, stood erect like soldiers. Then, Korea's doll Messers and Yoshi's doll's kneader attached to the souls' backs and hands respectively. Instantly, the unarmed souls were equipped with a long sword, a large iron fan, and a hairdryer on their backs. Once controlled by the dolls together, the souls stood still, awaiting further commands. Watching this, naturally some defiant souls tried to resist. Bastards, die! Wielding a blade, a thug from Zaraki district slashed at a controlled soul ahead. But the controlled soul merely opened the iron fan in its left hand. Clang 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 clang. The polished, gleaming tip of the knife scraped across the iron fan, producing a shower of sparks. Undoubtedly, this thug had no chance of resisting against the controlled being. How is this possible? That guy couldn't even take one punch from me before. Looking at the controlled original owner, the thug exclaimed. But the soul he used to bully just had the hairdryer on its back blow, and the entire being instantly accelerated. Gosh! The long sword neither accurately pierced the thug's chest, emerging from his back with crimson blood. Staggering back, clutching his chest. But with his heart pierced, blood flowed unstoppably through the thug's fingers. Finally, the fallen thug, due to his scant ryuryoku, dispersed into erasure. And these erasure were absorbed by the doll that killed him. From start to finish, the controlled soul remained expressionless, cold as iron. Clearly, it was completely controlled by Ritz. Seeing this, the audience in Chuan and Wang Zhongchao's livestreams were also severely shaken. Holy crap, is this still a player event? This is clearly a zombie crisis. Yeah, what's the difference between those little things entering your body and getting bitten by a zombie? Seriously, I have a question. Does the game really want players to grow, not die? How do I feel like these things that can develop their own armies, are something players can't handle? Same feeling. In the bullet comments, everyone discussed fervently. However, the idea that the game itself had malfunctioned wasn't actively mentioned by anyone. Besides Ichigo, they could hardly imagine a scenario where the game malfunctioned. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.